Death and devastation in Ukraine. This morning, Ukrainian forces were able to push back Russian troops in Kharkiv as President Zelensky ignored Russia's ultimatum deadline to surrender in Mariupol. Florida Congressman Michael Waltz joining us right now to discuss the very latest. Congressman Waltz, good morning. Welcome. Good to see you on this Monday. As we learn more about Mariupol on the brink of falling to Russians, what are you hearing on the Hill there? What's the status of Mariupol at this point?
Well, they just withstood a surrender or die ultimatum from Putin and from the Russian forces. And it appears bravely, heroically, the Ukrainian resistance in Mariupol will fight to the death. It breaks my heart. I think it breaks the world's heart to see that city leveled. It's a critical port city for Ukraine that exports a lot of their heavy manufacturing, mining goods, oil and gas. And when I visited Ukraine last year, the Ukrainians then were begging for anti-ship missiles to help defend their ports. And they weren't given those missiles because the Biden administration labeled them too offensive, too escalatory, too provocative.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because during an interview, Ukrainian President Zelensky did address the lack of trust he has in some countries and leaders and their leadership because of their response to the invasion. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I don't believe the world. After we see what's going on in Ukraine, I mean that I don't believe to this feeling that we should believe to some countries or some leaders. We don't believe the words. After escalation of Russia, we don't believe our neighbors. We don't believe all of this.
Congressman Waltz, what's your response to this? I mean, we're seeing another country invade a sovereign nation. Is the U.S. and other, are we doing enough to support Ukrainians?
Well, we clearly did not do enough to stop and deter Putin. And I think we need to recognize that in the wake of this, particularly as it pertains to Taiwan, that our deterrent strategy failed. And even when I was out there last year, you know, the Ukrainians were saying, look, talking tough and having a unified tough response after our cities are leveled doesn't do us a lot of good. And I think that's what you're hearing from Zelensky. Look, we are doing a lot now, but I would put it in the category of way too late and still not enough. Even this big aid package that Biden just announced still is not nearly enough for what the Ukrainians need to defend against the Russian onslaught that'll be coming in the next week.
Yeah, and you commended the Ukrainians for taking out the Russian warship Moskva, and you believe Ukraine could be taking out more Russian ships that they had, as you talked about before, some of these anti-ship missiles. What significance does this attack, though, have on Russia's plan as this war continues, do you think?
Well, it's huge, and we can't overstate what a big deal this is, that it was the pride of the Russian fleet. Putin himself has hosted foreign leaders on the Moskva. There's only 3 in the entire Russian Navy. And importantly, militarily, you're starting to now see the Black Sea Fleet back away in terms of distance from the Ukrainian coast. Which is significant because those ships have been actually shelling Ukrainian cities from the sea. And one of Russia's big objectives was the port of Odessa. It is the Ukrainian lifeline economically, and that is going to be far more difficult for Russia to take Odessa now from the sea.
And in addition to all the work that you're doing on Capitol Hill right now, you've also been putting your writing skills to the test. I understand you just released a children's book titled Dawn of the Brave that teaches children about teamwork, selfless service, and defending your country. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, we have to take our children's education back, and we're seeing in the wake of Virginia, now what's going on with Disney, COVID exposed all the nonsense being taught in our schools. What are we going to fill that void with as conservatives? This is part of a series of books. You can only find them on bravebooks.com, not Amazon. And the kids get a book a month focused on a traditional value of faith, of family, the Constitution. In the case of my book, Service to Country. And $15 of every subscription is going to Samaritan's Purse. which is doing so much great work to help Ukrainian refugees.
Congressman, there's a great debate happening around the country right now at this moment when it comes to the curriculum being taught in schools. We know Florida has become sort of ground zero for this debate ahead of Ron DeSantis, governor there, signing the Parental Rights and Education bill. As a father, what do you make of what students are being taught right now in schools? And you mentioned we need to take back education. Why did it take a pandemic of parents finally seeing what their kids were learning in schools for them to realize they should have done this a long time ago?
Well, I think, frankly, a lot of parents were asleep at the switch and had a level of, I think, of trust that things like gender dysphoria and sexuality would not be taught in our kindergartners and first and second grade. And that's what the Florida bill aims to prevent. And it has nothing to do with being gay or homosexuality. It's any sexuality, hetero or homosexual, shouldn't be taught to kindergartners. And look, right now, the United States ranks 9th in the world in reading and in the 30s, like 31st in the world in math and science. Let's focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic, and educating our kids, preparing them for the future, and get this, those types of sensitive, difficult topics need to be dealt with in the home. And parents, again, need to wake up. We're pushing back now. And why I wrote Dawn of the Brave and worked with bravebooks.com was to fill that void with good, wholesome content.
Congressman Michael Waltz, always a pleasure talking to you. Best of luck to you. Thanks for joining us. Thank you.